I know this woman. She's incredible. I love her. I have recently devoured her book. I don't know if you've ever had a relationship with someone in which you didn't think you could love them anymore, and then you devour their book and you love them even more. But basically, this is going to be, I don't know, 20 minutes of me fangirling and us having a conversation like we would have if we were just at a bar catching up together about this incredible book. If you are not familiar or don't already know, there is a bookstore in the back. I highly encourage you to get this.
Yeah, go see Noelle.
Yes. So here's the thing. Most of us, and when I say us, I mean women, girls, start out our lives with these assumptions, this success strategy for what it means to be productive in life. And it basically goes something like this. There's 4 steps. Work hard, know the answer, stand out from the crowd, but not too much, please the people in power. Okay? By 8 or 9, most of us are executing that flawlessly, and Jen and I are very different. I was 10 pages into her book, and I realized, oh my God, I guzzled that Kool-Aid and basically executed that strategy until my mid-30s when I couldn't keep all of the balls in the air anymore and had to write a book called Drop the Ball about that process.
Also an excellent book, also on sale.
What I loved about this book and about you is that at 8 or 9 years old, you already knew that was BS. And if I could retitle this book, it's called Weird in a World That's Not, but if I could create a new title for it, I would title this book Normal in a World That's Weird. Because you were brilliant from the very beginning, it's just that no one else could really see that. Can you talk about what weird means to you? When you write about being weird, that identity, how have you reappropriated that term? What does that mean? Because I think there are a lot of people in the room who could really relate to that.
Well, I think that one of the things that happened when the book came out is that I realized I wasn't that weird. Like, everyone was like, actually, I relate. This is not that weird. But I'm a really awkward person. I'm a really sensitive person. I'm a really emotional person. I overthink everything. I'm slightly neurotic. I'm physically clumsy. I can be socially clumsy. I mean, you saw. And I had reached a point in my career where I was objectively successful. I had big titles, I had big jobs, but I didn't feel or look like the picture of success. I wasn't poised, I wasn't polished, I had stains on my pants. I didn't know what to do with my hands in meetings. I mean, I don't know what to do with them now, right? And I didn't think that anybody was telling people, it's okay, you're allowed to be like this and be successful. You don't have to be Wonder Woman posing. You don't have to feel confident all the time. You don't need to be polished. Like, they're still gonna let you in. And it was very important to me to get that message across. Like, first off, nobody knows how weird it feels inside your head. So you're just like, everything's bouncing in there and they know, and I'm a fraud, and oh my God, and all that. Nobody knows that, right? So that was also important for me to get across. But really that thing of like, you're not allowed to be offbeat or a misfit and also be a conventional success.
You talk about perfection as a fantasy. Can you say more about that?
Well, I mean, we've just been fed, and I'm not going to curse, but we've just been fed so much BS about having it all and that we just have to be perfect in our jobs and as mothers and as wives and all of these different things. And it's just not true. And you don't have to be perfect even as a leader. I actually think your flaws and your sensitivity and the ways that you mess up but take accountability for it are what make you a relatable and successful person, you know? And that idea of perfection is what keeps us from doing things a lot of times. Like, well, I'm not gonna be the best at it, maybe I just shouldn't do it. Well, no, you should just do it and you'll be what you are.
That's it. I connect with pretty much everyone that reaches out to me. Like, somebody can DM me on Twitter and they're like, let's connect. And I'm like, sure, let's connect. And the result of that is I meet with 6 to 7 women a week. I meet them on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 9, 10, and 11. And I've done this for several years. I've met with over 1,000 women. And basically, what is fascinating about listening to so many women's stories is that we were born all playing out certain roles. If you have siblings, you're a brother or sister, your first role was probably daughter or son. We become friends, students. And what I find fascinating about listening to so many stories is that even though we're born in different parts of the world, to different families, with different values, somehow we all ended up with the same job description pretty much for what it means to be a good anything. Right? I'm the oldest of 4 girls, which means that in my good sister job description, it means that I need to respond to my little sister's text messages within 2 minutes. I'm sure there's one now saying I need $100 or something, right? If you are a mother, there's a line in the good mom job description that says you need to be physically present when your child takes their first steps.
Right.
I cannot tell you the number of times I've heard the story. I'm really stressed. I have a work event I have to go off to. It's going to take me, to some other state. As soon as the plane takes off or the train rolls out of the station, my child, who's about a year, is going to start walking. I will have missed the entire event. It will have meant that I was a very bad mother. How do you retool? How do you create a new job description? Because what I loved about this book were the ways in which you were really advocating that we get clear about who we are, that we not contort ourselves in order to fit what society wants us to be. But Jen, we've been playing out these job descriptions that were imposed on us for so long. I think that people sometimes have a hard time figuring out, well, what part is me and what part was handed to me?
You're so smart, by the way. You're just the best. I'm just honored to be here with you. I feel like well, first off, I was a late bloomer. I failed out of college. I had a disastrous first marriage. I just kept messing up. I was just failing over and over again. Like, I almost failed out of high school because I couldn't pass gym. There was nothing about me that was conventionally successful. I had no pedigree. My parents were teenagers when they had me. They didn't ever graduated high school. So for me, it was just an honor to be in the room, right? I just couldn't even believe it. It was always like, whoa, this is amazing, And I think I was just good enough. And I learned that also, most people kind of suck. This is really the truth. So you're holding yourself to this standard up here, and there's all these movers and shakers and fakers and charlatans, and they're just sucking. And you're putting all this pressure on yourself to be perfect. So at some point I looked around and I was like, I'm just gonna be good enough at everything, and it'll be fine.
Okay, so if you're someone who's very straight-laced like me, it is also a very salacious book. I mean, I will admit, not only have I never been stoned, no one has even ever offered me drugs in my entire life, which I actually think is kind of lame. So, I mean, you're just that's part of the reason why I was devouring the pages. This woman has lived a life. But one of the other reasons why I loved it is because so much of the book are things that my mother either told me on a regular basis or that she tried to tell me, but that I didn't hear as clearly until I read them in your book, because you're so transparent with what you are saying. And there's a part in here that I have to share with everyone. It's probably, to me, the most valuable. There's lots of advice in the book, but one of the most valuable pieces of advice. So when I was growing up, I used to be very worried about what other people thought about me. And my mother, when I would come to her worried about what somebody else thought, would always say to me, Tiffany, you always worried about what everybody is thinking about you. Everybody is worried about what everybody else is thinking about you, which means ain't nobody got time to be worried about you. Okay? But this is how Jen puts it. And this is specifically in relationship to the workplace. Most of the things you worry about happening at work will never actually happen. You are not getting fired for that weird email. I am almost 100% sure, but there are ways your otherness can get in the way of your success. The most basic garden variety stuff involves letting your mind go wild and giving too much attention to ghost problems, issues that are not real or that you've created yourself unnecessarily. I've been working with women almost exclusively for the past 10 years, which has been, on balance, a privilege and a delight, and I've been a boss for the past 8, and the number one thing I see negatively impacting talented women is that they get in their own way. They distract themselves with drama or psych themselves out or over-examine situations to a debilitating degree. And then she gives real life examples. So she's got this theory, but then she goes through things that actually have happened at work and your response to them and what that really means. Can you talk about how we overcome this? How do we shift our perspective? How do we get out of that mindset?
Well, I think that this idea of just really thinking of it as the projection of negative fantasies, right? It's a fantasy. It's not real unless you have something concrete in front of you where your boss says, "You're terrible." You should not believe you're terrible. Unless somebody says to you, "This work is not good enough," you should not believe this work is not good enough. You take people at their word, and if they don't tell you, it's their problem, not yours, right? But this constant thing of like, does he like me? Does she like me? Is this person better than me? It's just a waste of time and it's a distraction. And in order to be successful, we have all these things happening in our lives, right? We don't have time for these distractions. We just don't have time to indulge ourselves. And that's what it is. It's ultimately indulgent, right? So really training yourself like a discipline, like what is real and what is not real. Well, if nobody's told me this, it's probably not real. And if it is, somebody will tell me. And that's it. I mean, it's easier said than done, but it's a discipline, and it's a necessary discipline, because if not, you're gonna waste so much time that you just don't have.
That's it. I once went to a mentor for advice about a job that I was really interested in. I actually thought it was my dream job, but it would have required a move to a different city. And so I was trying to figure out whether or not I should apply for the job. And my mentor said to me, "Tiffany, if there's one pattern that I've seen with you, it's that you're constantly worried about decisions that you don't have to make."
Right.
She said, "You're worried about moving your family, you haven't even applied to the job. Like,
Right.
you don't have a job offer." She's like, "I think you should focus more of your energy actually generating options so that you actually have decisions to make, as opposed to being worried about decisions that you don't actually have to make."
That's amazing.
And you knew that for a long time from the very beginning. So can we do a round robin?
Yes.
Okay, so there's this really great chapter about what no one tells you about work. And I think it's an important chapter because most of us walk into workplaces and there's an unspoken culture. There are norms that are unspoken. And you may even ask the question directly to someone and get an answer that you think is really clear, but it's still a bit murky.
Yeah.
Bras.
Wear them. I'm sorry.
You should wear them. Okay, so this one was very helpful for me because I don't even have enough breast tissue to need to have a bra, and I feel very resentful that the only reason why I have to wear a bra is to cover my nipples.
Yes.
And it was very helpful to hear Jen say, "Go ahead and do that."
Well, and this comes from years of experience of not wearing them and like having playing like my eyes are up here, with men, and it's just like I said, like I used to buy Forever 21 shirts that were basically like saran wrap and be like, "What's up?" And I didn't understand because nobody had taught me this rule.
Yes.
Anyway.
Office email that you might think is your private email, but not so much.
Nothing that is on anything, machine, server, app is yours. Nothing is private. And there is the thing of like, don't ever send an email that you wouldn't want read out loud to a group of people, like whatever. I've done it, we all do it, but you have to keep that in mind.
How did you learn this lesson?
I leaked a story about when I was working at Talk Magazine. I was dating a media reporter, and I leaked a story about Salma Hayek having a conversation with me in the elevator, and it got leaked, and he wrote a story about it, and he wasn't respectful of me, and he didn't protect me enough, and I got called in to every person in HR. And then the guy who was like based on the character from Sex and the City, Mr. Big, his real name is Ron Galati, and he was like in my face, like, I can't believe you did this. And he didn't fire me, but I almost got fired. I leaked company information is the short story.
I have a policy that before
Yes.
I hit send, I ask myself, like, if this was on the cover of the New York Times, could you stand by it? Not would you not be embarrassed, but like,
Right.
could you stand by it? And if the answer is yeah, I could stand by it. I wouldn't like it. It might be embarrassing, but I could stand by it. I go ahead and hit send. And if I can't,
That's a better rule than would you like this said out loud, which is so like cliche.
yeah, exactly. Um, there's a section in this chapter as well about what's not in your head that I actually thought was very helpful. And there are a couple of things. One, that bosses play favorites.
Yes.
So you're at work, you're like, I think that he likes her better than her.
Yes.
You say that's not in your head. That's actually true.
No, it's
Bosses do
absolutely
that.
true. It's just, we're human beings. We vibe with people more than we vibe with other people. It's just what happens. There's chemistry, there's not chemistry. And that's not, and sometime you will be the favorite and sometime you won't. And it's just something you have to deal with and work around.
Another one is that there's a protected class. Can you talk about the protected class at work?
So there's definitely like a legitimate protected class, like, people who are disabled, like there's legitimate, but then there's also a protected class where you might be in a work situation where you're like, why is this person not do any work and get away with it? And it's something you could really fixate on. Like you could just go around and around, like, why am I worried? That person, it goes back to the sucking thing, right? But sometimes there's this protected class where there's some history with this employee. They have dirt on the boss. They're not going to get fired because the boss will lose headcount and they don't want to lose headcount until the next quarter or the next year. Like there's all these reasons. And so one of the things I say is just understand that this is a reality and move past it. But if you get into a negative thing about it and you're gossiping about it all the time, again, you're distracting yourself from doing the work and from furthering yourself, which is all you're really there to do.
You're so brilliant.
I don't know.
When I was growing up, my mother, did she say that she knows? I didn't know for a really long time.
It's recent.
When I was growing up, my mother used to tell me every single day, Tiffany, you're so smart, and you're so beautiful, and you're so loved. She told me that so often, it was very annoying by the time I was an adolescent. But I just want to wrap up by telling you that, Jen, you are so smart, and you're so beautiful, and you're so loved, and I am blessed to know you in this lifetime. And everyone, please get this book. Thank you so much.